All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So good morning, it's Tuesday. Make sure you have out materials, so calculator, pencil, notebook, graph paper, and then you should have been taking the time to find the slope of the line that passes through these points. So we've got 1, -4, and -2, 2. So go ahead and type in the chat what you got for the slope. No, you're supposed to enter the slope, Keisha. You're good. So right now you should be either working on this, finding the slope, or entering what you got into the chat. All right, so I see an answer from Maya. If anybody else found it, you can enter it in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and go over this with everybody, just so we're all on the same page. Hold on, somebody just entered. Let me make sure I give everybody attendance. All right, so I've got y2. So remember, we've got 2 points that we're working with. So y2 is gonna be -4, and then minus y1, which is +2. Divided by, maybe, x2, which is 1, minus -2. So on the top, we've got -4 minus 2, which gives us -6. On the bottom, we've got 1 minus a -2. Remember, when we've got minus a negative, it's the same thing as adding. Or you can always type it into your calculator to check. 1 minus a -2 is the same thing as 1 plus 2. So we're going to have -6 divided by 1 plus 2, which is 3. So those of you who said -6 divided by 3 equals -2, you are awesome. Those of you who didn't get that, that's totally okay too. Make sure we're paying attention to negative numbers. So -4 minus 2 gives us a -6. So -6 divided by 3 is our rise over our run. We can simplify that, and I noticed that some of you guys did. If we take -6 divided by 3, we're going to get a slope of -2. Now, just to check, I'm going to go ahead and put it on a graph, and what I can do is I'm going to go ahead and erase everything that's going on around the points really quick. So just so they're a little easier to read. So I'm going to go ahead and plot these 2 points. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one right here. So I've got 1, -4. So I'm going to go over 1, down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 1, -4. And then I've got, and remember, if you guys are ever confused, x and y. So my x value, so this is my x-axis right here. So if it's a negative number, I'm going to go to the left. So I'm going to go over from the origin 1, 2, and then I'm going to go up 1, 2. So if I go ahead and connect those lines, sorry, somebody else joined. I had to make sure I got their attendance. So if I connect these lines, I'm left with a negative slope. It's going down from left to right. So we got a negative slope, we've got a negative line, so that checks out. So I would just always suggest, if you guys are taking a quiz or working independently, like without me, I would recommend putting it on graph paper just to make sure that your line is a negative. If you get a negative slope, you should get a negative line. If you have a positive line, you should get a positive slope, and so forth. So make sure that you are comfortable with that. Are there any questions about our do now for today? This should be hopefully review. All right, so I don't know why I put Monday on here. It's Tuesday. Clearly, I don't know what day it is. Actually, I think I made this for you guys yesterday and I had Monday in mind. So I'll make sure I have an appropriate Bitmoji in there tomorrow for you guys. So topics we have learned about so far. We've talked about proportional versus non-proportional relationships. This was from several weeks ago. Remember, guys, a proportional relationship goes through the origin, is a straight line. A non-proportional relationship is going to start not on the origin. So it's still going to be a straight line, but a non-proportional relationship starts elsewhere. We've also discussed getting the slope from 2 points. So that's kind of what we just did. I'm going to move my computer this time. So slope from 2 points, that's what we just did a minute ago. We have 2 points, we're finding the slope. We've talked about slope types as well. Slope from a graph, rise over run. We've talked about equations and slope intercept form. So we're gonna kind of talk about all of these a little bit more today. So we're gonna start with this one. It seems very simple, just kind of like a line that we need to find the slope from, but I've noticed on your guys' work, because you guys have been doing the drag and drop activities, it's kind of clear to me that some people need a little bit more help, and on the quiz, I noticed that people need a little bit more help identifying how to find the slope of a line when your rise and your run aren't given to you. So what I'm gonna do is a few things you could do. So I'm gonna make it a little bit darker. So we've got our x-axis and our y-axis. Sorry guys, I tried to make it straight. So just to make that a little bit clearer, we've got our line. It's a positive line, so we should have a positive slope, right? So positive line, positive slope. A few things. What I think the easiest thing to do, instead of finding some points and doing all the math and working out the y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, I think that it's a little bit easier to just pick 2 points that intersect at xy. So when I say that, if we're looking at a graph and we've got all of the, this is just a point on a piece of a graph, you're looking for points that intersect the line and x and y at the same spot. So the line should be going through x and y on the corner of a graph. So what I'm kind of mean is this is not a good spot for a line or a point to pick. Just because it's kind of in the middle, you want to make sure you're picking a point that is on an x axis and on a y axis. So making sure you're finding the corner of a box. I just wanted to kind of reiterate that, guys, for you guys. So we're gonna go ahead and select 2 points from here. I'm gonna pick this one just because and actually, you know what, since I'm gonna make this bigger so we can kind of see a little bit better. It's kind of blurry, but at least it's bigger. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw my x and y axis again. So x-axis, y-axis. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick 2 points. I'm gonna pick this point right here. It doesn't matter which points you pick. You just need to make sure that they intersect x and y. They need to be at the corner of a box, okay? The next point I'm gonna pick, this isn't a good spot, this isn't a good spot, this is a good spot because it is at the corner, the line is intersecting the corner of a box. So I'm gonna pick those 2. Now that I've picked those, and I know it's harder for you guys also because you guys are working on screens and not on paper, but if you wanted to practice graphing and kind of putting whatever's on the quiz or test onto paper, you could do that. All right, so for this one, we can actually do our change in y divided by our change in x. So remember, we talked about rise divided by run. That's how we can find slope. So I'm just gonna go ahead, go up 1, 2. So our rise is gonna be 2, and then we're gonna go over 1, 2, 3. So 2 over 3 is our rise over run. Simplified, we've got 2/3. We can go ahead and take 2 divided by 3, and that should give us about 0.67. So that's going to be our slope for a line like that. I just wanted to kind of clarify that because some people I've noticed when you guys are given the rise and the run, you guys can find it. But then when you just have a line on a graph, some of you guys have been struggling. So just making sure that we kind of know what we're doing there. So I'm going to go ahead. Here's another example. I'm trying to make this a little bit bigger. All right, so I've got my X, again, I'm trying to make it straight, my X axis, my Y axis, and then I've got my line. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick 2 points to plot. So again, this isn't a good spot, 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 because those are not on corners of the boxes. So we need to pick corners of the boxes. So I'm gonna pick right here, and then I'm looking for another corner, I'm looking for another spot. It intersects right here as well. And you can pick any point. It doesn't have to be just the ones that I pick, but you can pick any of the points where the line is intersecting the corners of the boxes. Can you guys, real quick for me, guys, again, it's hard when I'm teaching to blank screens, which is fine. You guys are allowed to have them off. Can you just give me a yes or a no if you guys are understanding what I mean when I'm saying you can't plot points just randomly. You have to make sure that you're picking points that are intersecting a corner of the X and Y. So make sure you're just say yes or no. Okay. Just because, again, I can't see your faces. I can't see if you guys are getting it or not. So it's just hard for me to gather if you guys need help or not on that. Okay, good. So in this case, then go ahead and enter what the slope would be. So go ahead and look at this and kind of try and figure out based on this. I know it's kind of hard because it's on a screen, but try and figure out what the rise is and what the run is, and then figure out what our slope would be. I'll give you a minute to do that. And once you get it, just go ahead and enter it in the chat for this one. All right, so Ari entered it. If anybody else has a slope, go ahead and enter it. Good, so if we're taking our rise divided by our run, we're going up 3 over 2. So up 3 over 2. If we go from this point, up 3 over 2. Same thing every single time. So our slope for this is going to be 3 over 2 or 1.5. So our slope is going to be 1.5 for this line. All right. What we're going to do next is going to be a little bit different. Let's see. I'm deciding if I want to go ahead and do this or not. I'm going to go ahead and skip these for right now. What I want you to do is go ahead and identify what the slope is. So this is our y-intercept formula. Remember, we talked about this before. We've got y equals mx plus b, where m is going to be slope and b is going to be your y-intercept. So go ahead, if we're given this information, we practiced this before and you guys said you wanted more practice on it. So go ahead and type in the chat, what is the slope of this line? Given this format right here. So what is this, what is the slope? If you're not sure, remember y equals mx plus b. This is in y equals mx plus b format. Our slope is going to be next to x. Whoops. And our y-intercept is going to be that part at the end. So I see Maya said the slope is -2 and the intercept is 7. Good. So I kind of like highlighting. It really helps me. If it helps you guys too, you can also do that. So our slope is going to be -2. because we took out this -2 out of our equation that we were given. And then we've got +7 is our y-intercept. I just wanted to practice that. And now we can go ahead and check our work. So something that you're going to be asked to do in the future, not yet because we're still kind of working on these skills, is you're going to have to, once you're given a equation like this, so an equation in slope-intercept form, you're going to have to be able to graph that. So it looks challenging right now. It looks like something we might not know how to do. But if you guys remember, I'm going to highlight my X and Y axis really quick. Maybe trying to do a straight line. So with this, you always start with the y-intercept, okay? So we're going to go ahead and start at +7. So the y-intercept is going to fall somewhere on our y-axis. So we're going to go up 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's going to be somewhere up here, unfortunately. But then our slope is -2. Well, if we want to put that into rise over run form, we can just do -2/1, okay? So what this means is -2 and -2/1 are the exact same thing. So once we start at that +7, we can go ahead and go down 1, 2/1. Then we can go down 1, 2/1. 1, 2/1, down 2, and I'm going down because it's a -2/1, down 2/1. So then our slope or our line is going to follow those points, and that makes sense because 1, we've got a negative slope. 2, it's going to be a -2 slope, so that's going to go down 2/1 every single time. And then that +7, so when you're plotting an equation that's in slope-intercept form, always start with the y-intercept. But even being able to identify, but I know, okay, you got +2. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, it's negative. And again, we talked about slope trends, so make sure that you're staying aware of that when you're checking your work. All right, so we've got y equals -4x + 1. So given what we just talked about, what is the slope and what is the y-intercept? Good, Isaiah. So we've got -4 is our slope, because that's going to be our m in this case, and our y equals mx plus b situation. So our slope is going to be -4. Our y-intercept is going to be +1. And now we're going to go ahead and practice again graphing this. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my x-axis, draw my y-axis. And then I'm going to go ahead and start with my y-intercept, which is +1. So I'm going to start right here. And then my slope is -4. Whenever you have a whole number by itself, -4, you can always put it over 1 to do your rise over your run. So -4, we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, down 4 over 1. And same thing, I can go over 1, up 4. And then that is going to be the line that goes with that formula. So I just kind of wanted to show you guys, again, I've kind of reinforced this or tried to reinforce this since the beginning. Everything's connected. Tables, points, equations, graphs, everything's all connected, and you can represent things in a ton of different ways. So we started last week trying to calculate for B. So last week it got kind of complicated when we started doing the y equals mx plus b stuff, where we found the slope and then we had to find b. That was kind of a lot. So in the chat right now, what I want you guys to do is type in a skill that you want to work on. I asked you guys this last Friday and I just got somebody said graphing, which is, it's kind of a vague term. So type in a skill that you actually want to work on, because again, this is kind of your guys' class. I mean, I have loosely what I want to do, but if you guys need help with something, so if you need help with plotting points, if you need help with finding slope, if you need help with, if you want to see more of the y equals mx plus b stuff, if you want to see how to find b, which we're going to do more of that anyways, but so go ahead in the chat and type in anything that you need help with, or if you feel like you don't need help, if you feel like you're really good and ready to move on, type in I'm ready to move on and we'll get into more stuff. Finding slope, okay. All right, so I'm waiting on a few people just to type in. You either need to type in, I'm ready to move on and do more stuff, or if you need, all right. So we're gonna keep practicing finding slope. That's gonna be kind of the whole unit is slope. I know I'm like, I just keep saying, yeah, more slope. We're gonna keep doing slope. But we're gonna kind of add some non-proportional stories and equations. We're gonna determine proportional, non-proportional stuff. We're gonna do more graphing practice. Sorry, I'm just looking at my calendar to see what we're gonna kind of be doing in the next few weeks. We're gonna be working more on graphing equations and finding B, and then writing equations from graphs and tables. So it is gonna get a little bit more complicated, but as long as we're practicing finding slope, that's like the key thing from this whole unit is how to find slope. So we're gonna go ahead and for today, let me see if I have any more. Okay, let's see. For today, I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna find the slope of a line that passes through these 2 points, and then we're gonna kind of tackle the more challenging part with it. So go ahead and you guys, those of you who know how to solve it, go ahead and start solving. So we've got, you need to find, I don't know why I'm trying to do this with my mouse. It's not a good idea. Let's see, I'll use my pen. All right, so we want to find the slope of a line that passes through these 2 points. So we've got, I'm just going to make this 0.2 and this 0.1. Again, we're using the formula y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So y2 is going to be the y value on point number 2 minus y1, which is going to be the y value on point number 1. So for that first part, we're just going to take y2, which is positive 1, minus negative 3, which is the y value in point number 1. Then we're going to go ahead and divide by x2 minus x1. And once you guys get the slope, you guys can go ahead and enter it in the chat. I'm just kind of guiding it along for those of you guys who want to see it again. So x2, we're going to take the x value. So remember, this is written in an xy value. So xy format. So the x value in point number 2 is going to be positive 2. The x value in point number 1 is going to be a negative 4. So we're going to subtract a negative 4. So we're going to go ahead and simplify this. So 1 minus a negative 3 is the same thing as 1 plus 3. So I'm going to have 4 divided by 2 minus a negative 4 is going to be 2 plus 4, which is 6. So those of you who said 4, 6, good job. So 4 divided by 6 is the same thing. Let's see. 4 divided by 6. And that's going to be 0.67 basically, or like 2/3. So slope is either going to be 2/3 simplified, or if we want to do 4 divided by 6, we're going to have 0.67. All right, so that's going to be our slope. Now, we've talked about this. I've kind of introduced a bunch of topics randomly throughout the unit, just because this unit isn't something that has one big skill. I mean, yeah, finding slope is the big skill, but it's got a bunch of little skills involved in it. So that's kind of why I've been bouncing around all over the place with the stuff that we're doing. So we've got our y-intercept, or our slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So this is where some of you guys got lost last time. I talked about how we can plug in our slope for m. In this case, I'm going to keep the 2/3 just because it's exact, whereas this 0.67 is an estimate because it was a repeating decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and do y equals, all I'm doing is plugging 2/3 in for m, which is our slope. So y equals 2/3 x plus b. So hopefully you guys are all still with me. All I did was I took our slope and plugged it in for m. Now, the next step, we're going to plug in a y value and an x value in, I'll do it in a different color. Let's see. We are going to do our y value and our x value in for b, or for y and x. Oh, I didn't realize it was already 10 o'clock. So this will probably be our last problem for today. So y equals 2/3 x plus b. We're wanting to solve for b because that's the main thing we're missing right now to have our formula for this line. So what I can do is I can take one of these points I already have. So I'm going to take 2, 1. So I'm going to take 2, 1, because that was one of our points over there. So 2, 1. And remember, this is written in x, y format, because that's how points are written. So I've got my 1 and I've got my 2. I'm going to go ahead and plug in 2 for x and 1 for y. And I'm going to get rid of these arrows, but I want to explain to you guys what I'm doing. I'm taking a point that goes through the graph, because we already know that this point, since it says we're finding a slope of a line that goes through this point, this is already a point that we know. So I'm going to use it and substitute it in for our missing values. So I'm going to plug in 1 for y equals 2/3 times x. So in this case, it's going to be positive 2 plus b. We don't know b. We're trying to solve for b. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and keep going. I've got 1 equals, what's 2/3 times 2? So 2abc3 times 2. Good, all right. So 2/3 times 2 is going to give us 1 1/3 plus b. So this has been simplified right here. This part we've multiplied, we've simplified, good. Whoops. So 1 1/3 plus b. Now, those of you who weren't here for our algebra unit, we've got something called constants and we've got something called variables. Our variables are unknown terms or unknown values. So our goal is to get all of our constants to one side of the equal sign and all of our variables to the other side. Well, we've already got all of our variables on the right side. So I want to go ahead and move 1 1/3 to the left side. So how can I move a positive term? So what is the opposite of a positive 1/3, 1 1/3? And I know a lot of you guys weren't here for our algebra unit. So to move a positive 1 1/3, good Maya, we're going to subtract 1 1/3 from both sides. So the opposite of a positive 1/3 is going to be a negative 1/3. So we're going to, and 1 1/3 minus 1 1/3 cancels. So then we're just left with b, which is what we wanted. We're left with b on the right side. And then 1 minus 1 1/3. So 1 minus 1 ABC1 ABC3 is going to give us negative 1/3. So negative 1/3 is going to be b. Now I know this is a lot. We're going to take what we got for b and we're going to plug it in. So let me go ahead and I know this is like, it's kind of chaotic over here. So we've got y equals mx plus b. Our m is 2/3, remember? So y equals 2/3 x. And then instead of b, we found b. b is negative 1/3. So we've got negative 1/3. So our slope intercept formula for this equation is going to be y equals 2/3 x minus 1/3. Good, Maya. And I know it's kind of all over the place. It's kind of hard to write since I don't have a big board and I'm trying to make sure I get everything written down for you guys to see. All right. Any questions about this? I think we're gonna do this tomorrow. I think this is what I want to focus on tomorrow. We are gonna focus on slope a little bit more. But I think we're gonna work more on finding B and working on that slope intercept form. So as far as right now, you can ask me questions. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.